Anderson Business Coaching inspires extraordinary organizational results by engaging the talents of ordinary people. ABC opens the communication links from the top to the bottom of the organization to tap into an untapped reserve of creative ideas and solutions by the people who do the work every day. Secondly, we identify external resources that have the experience and capability to develop systems and processes that the internal staff can manage.
Hi, this is Ray Anderson. Welcome to another episode of Good-Hearted Leadership, how to catapult your business by helping others. Today I've got the pleasure of introducing somebody I've gotten to know well as a friend and a mentor. But before I begin that, I wanted to give you some reason. Why would you go with Good-Hearted Leadership? Because I have people tell me, well, that's kind of kumbaya. Well, let me give you a very compelling reason. One of the things that I've learned in my lifetime is that when you engage the wisdom of the front line, you can create a team of workforce warriors. And one of the things that's really critical is that they have answers to 90% of the problems inside of companies. And today I have the privilege of talking to George a little bit about what he's done inside of A to Z bus sales that's enabled him to take the business from a 40-year start and make it into one of the larger bus sale organizations in the entire area. And what I wanted him to talk about is how he used a tool that can be a very valuable in being able to engage your front line, an ESOP. So this is going to be a fun way to be able to explain how Good-Hearted Leadership can take many forms. And George used this vehicle and also his faith to be able to build a very, very good business. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to George Tillery. George, it's great to have you here again.
Good to be with you.
Yeah, thank you. So, knowing that you've had this ESOP and we've had this relationship that goes back probably 5 or 6 years now. Tell us a little bit about the philosophy of your business and how, you kind of moved in the direction of an ESOP and how that enables you to be a more effective Good-Hearted Leader, to use my term.
First of all, ESOP is an employee stock ownership plan. It's a federally approved by the Department of Labor and the IRS retirement program that benefits the employees of the company. It's approved by ERISA, Employee Retirement Income Security Act. So there's some government regulation involved in it, but it can be a tremendous value to all the parties involved. The employees, the selling shareholder, the customers. It provides stability of the company because the owners are now the employees and they have an interest in taking care of the customers and seeing the company prosper and improve. Statistically, employee-owned companies are more profitable than public or privately held companies. Why did I do the ESOP? Well, I believe that all I have is not really mine. I'm a manager or steward of it. I'm God's steward of what He's put in my hands, and that's my faith. I believe that when we die, we're not taking any of it with us, and so we need to be good managers of everything we have here. And I looked at the using an ESOP to diversify my ownership in the company and to bless the people that have helped me build it, the employee owners that are part of the organization, and provide stability for the company and a tremendous retirement benefit, a supplemental retirement benefit for our employees. So it's a win-win-win all the way around. Takes time to get traction, takes time for the employees to really believe that it's real, but it is real. We've been ESOP owned for 16 years now. And so we've been through quite a bit of experience in education and in managing joint ownership. I still own 49%, the employees own 51% of our ESOP.
Well, tell me a little bit, because I think, part of what we talked about prior to going on air here was that, you feel as though there is a responsibility on your part to help some of the employers and employees better understand stewardship, because many of them, particularly at the front line, really have a very short window as to what they see as important and not. Tell us a little bit about that and how you were able to get them involved.
Okay. I don't believe in being an example. I believe God's the example alone, and people look at me and they go, whoo. But we do have an environment where we can share our faith with others in our company. Not everybody believes what I believe. Not everybody has the same religious beliefs and values or worship like I do. That's not a requirement, and that's nobody's business. You can't use that as a hiring qualification, and wouldn't even think of it. But we have the freedom in our company to worship as we please. In fact, we have one of our values that states that we serve God by serving others. And we do that. So our employees see that they are serving God when they're taking care of our customers' needs, whether it's in getting them the right part for their bus, getting them the right bus for their use, getting good financing for them, preparing an invoice, washing the bus. We're taking care of our customers. We're serving God in our daily work by serving our customers. That brings fulfillment to the workplace. When you can really own that, it really gives you a fulfilling feeling about what you're doing.
Well, I think one of the things that I've learned, I mean, I've been at this not as long as you've been in A to Z bus sales, but for 30 years, and I think the disconnect as I see, you know, the management and frontline divide, it's usually because the frontline doesn't see the management as really having an overall concern for the customer and therefore them. So, you know, what I've seen in having been in your organization is that you have a very different attitude about that, and it stems, I think, in part from your relationship with God, in which you do serve others. Martin Buber, who is a rabbi who wrote a great book called I and Thou, said, "There are no gifted or ungifted here. There are only those who give of themselves and those who withhold of themselves."
Ooh.
You know, which is really a powerful statement, and I've seen that in your organization. So, you know, part of what helped you make the decision, as you were obviously 15 years ago, why an ESOP, and how did that connect with this giving of others?
Well, for myself, it's part of an exit strategy. We're all going to exit, either on our plan, or they carry us out in a box or on a stretcher, and we're there no more. Yeah. But it's better to plan for it, and being we've 15 years employee ownership. It is not a quick exit strategy, but it's an exit strategy to withdraw yourself from the company on the ownership level over a period of time and transfer that benefit to the employees. Further, if it's structured properly from the IRS perspective, you can transfer those funds or assets that relate to the value of the company into a qualified replacement property, stocks, bonds, whatever, and then you can gift those assets to charity, and therefore not paying a gain on the sale, but getting the benefit of the deduction of the gifting, as well as the charity being the great benefit of it. So in my life, I believe that God owns it all, and didn't have a clue on how it would work out from the beginning 40 years ago, but at this stage I can see how I can transfer all of my ownership out of my name into charity to the works that I believe God's directed me to help and support. Right. And so it's a fulfillment of He really does own it all, and now it's all in His hands, and the employees are still blessed by owning it and running it and carrying it into the future, however long that is.
Now, you know, one of the things that I know you've kind of expressed, and again, it's that short-term view of the front line. How did you educate them? How did you make them aware of the benefits, because that's a challenge?
Yeah, it's an ongoing process, it really is, and it takes a lot of education. So we have are constantly working on our employee ownership structure, the values of the company. One of our values is that we do care for each other because we do share ownership, and it's a constant educational process. And it takes a long period of time for people to really understand that it's real. Skepticism abounds, and over a period of time, people that have left the organization and have been paid out for their ownership, and then the stories come back to the people that are still there and their values continue to go up. They now know and understand it is real, and it is a significant part of their retirement assets.
And you know, I think that's really one of the things that's stunning about it, is that obviously the company has to be well managed, and we've had conversations about that. But having said that, you know, it becomes a fairly meaningful asset. Can you give us any insights as to what that would mean for the average employee, given the success that you've had in your business over these 15 years?
Well, I'm not sure what example you'd be looking for, but as far as the value of the shares, the longer they're with the company, and then the growth of the company can be a significant portion. We have numerous people who have 6 figures value, and a few in the 7-figure numbers of the value of their ESOP shares. It's tremendous.
Yeah.
Most people, I would say most people that have significant shares that have been with us from the beginning, it's their largest retirement asset, their ownership percentage of the ESOP.
That's amazing. Tell me a little bit, because I think, you know, part of what you've shared with us is the good side. But, you know, you have no dog in this fight, so to speak. Tell us a little bit about some of the challenges you've faced and some of the struggles that, you know, a CEO might run into as he starts embarking on this.
Well, the educational process, because you want the employees to see the benefit of it, and for it to reach its value, you know, employee ownership, they need to see the benefit of it. They need to feel like, yes, what they do, how they make decisions, taking care of customers, controlling expenses, increasing revenue does really help them. It does affect them. And it takes quite a while to do that. We've got 150 employees. They're not all entrepreneurs, and most of them don't think like I do. Thank you, Lord. That they don't. So the educational process is a big part of it, and it takes time. The drawbacks, I would say, well, it's not cheap. It does cost. You have audits, you have valuations, you have compliance requirements, and those are expensive. A very small company would be difficult to do an ESOP because of the compliance requirements, but if you have enough mass, and it can be worthwhile. It creates a big fiduciary responsibility for the selling shareholder as well as the board of directors. We have an outside board. We've got 3 outside board members and 2 inside board members, and so our outside board members have no ownership interest or ever have had an ownership interest in our company, and so they can govern without any inside motivation. There's more government regulations that control this, and so you have to stay in compliance with those. Government doesn't run the company, but we have to comply with regulations. So those are kind of some of the drawbacks to it.
Well, if you can, you know, if you're advising another CEO, and what you said mass, what size do you think it takes for a company to seriously contemplate this, given all the constraints that you mentioned?
Gosh, I don't think I'm qualified to answer that one. As far as saying should it be a 20-person company or a 50-person company, would probably depend on their expense level, and the bigger you are, the more costs of ESOP because of the audit requirements at a certain level. But why a person would do it, it really is a long-term program, a long-term process. If you're thinking about exiting the company and this is a way to do it, sell your shares to the employees and bail, no.
Okay, no, that was good.
It's a long-term process.
Right.
It's not something that you could bail on them.
Well, you know, one of the things that I've both learned from you, like I said, you've been both a friend and a mentor in many ways, George. You know, one of the things that I find smaller companies, privately owned, struggle with is having enough capacity to make that exit. And what I mean by that, you know, part of it is the fiduciary side, but the other side is ultimately it really isn't a business until it runs without you. And I think, I know personally speaking, that's always been a challenge for me. And one of the things that I was hoping you could share from your own perspective is the difficulties of doing that, and ultimately the success you had, but it isn't easy.
Yeah, separating yourself from who you are to what you do. For a lot of us, especially men, I would say that our identity is focused around who we are is what we do. So separating who we are versus what we do is step number one. And if you're an entrepreneur, you created the company, it's your baby, and this is who are you? I'm the bus guy. That's what I've done for most of my career, and that's an asset that I own. So going from who you are to this is what I do, to this is an asset that I own, it's a process, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
It really isn't. But if we think that we're indispensable, we're not. planning for our own departure is very important, and that's a big responsibility that is owed to either other investors or our employees.
Right.
Because if we got hit by a Coca-Cola truck or a Pepsi truck or what,
Yeah.
if we got hit by a truck and we're gone in the split second, what about those people that have been so good to us, that work for us, that we appreciate and value? They need this job and they want their job.
Yeah.
How is it going to continue?
Yeah. No, and that's a very good point. I think I see a lot of guys that don't really think about that. And I know that you spent a lot of time planning it and struggled with making that transition, because as your point is, you're a man like I'm a man, and all of a sudden, well, I did this and they're going to do it differently. Share with us some of both the good sides and maybe some of the feedback you may have gotten along the way.
Well, withdrawing yourself from the management of a company that you started and hired the first employee, and then you have 150 is a difficult thing to do. We now have our second CEO and president, second transition out of myself into another CEO and president who's been with us for 2 years, doing a fantastic job. We've got the world of respect for John, and a real blessing to my life. But one of the most difficult business things I did was to back away and allow Jim to run the company.
And that was the first guy that...
First guy, 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Difficult for Jim
Yeah.
and difficult for me.
But
we
you
made
can't share a story, because I think, one of the things I like about you, George, is you're not afraid to share some of your vulnerabilities, which help, other people make decisions and improve upon themselves, because, hey, we're not perfect.
Well, I hired Jim as a sales manager with the idea that he would be able to take over the company. And a brilliant man, did a great job for me, and it was a real blessing, and he retired a year and a half ago. And John has taken over. But this process, Jim, like any good leader, wants to be in charge. And they don't want to ask for permission all the time. And so the transfer of information and communication was difficult, because Jim didn't want me looking over his shoulder, and I wanted Jim to tell me what he was doing. And so it was a big frustration for him and a frustration for me, but by God's grace we got through it. And he didn't shoot me or quit, and it was a win-win all the way around.
What did you learn from that that's made it probably easier this time around?
That you do want somebody to not have to ask for permission. You do put a person in charge that has the ability and the culture and the values to make the right decision, and you got to let them run with it. And if there are a few mistakes, that's okay. You talk about them afterwards and find out the thought processes, and coach and encourage. Still, it's difficult.
No, I'm sure it is, and I think one of the things that we all know on the face of it, that we have to have repeatable and scalable systems, but most organizations don't. And I think one of the things that I've seen in watching you work is that you've always had your finger on the pulse of what counts in the business. Help us a little bit understand how you put those systems in place, so that even though the transition to Jim or your now new CEO is difficult, we're now talking about facts instead of personalities.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big issue.
Well, you either have to have good people or you have to have good systems. And we've had really good people, and still do have really good people in the organization. And I'm not a systems kind of guy. I'm a sales kind of person. I just do a deal, move on to the next one, and let somebody else clean up the mess. That's typical of a sales type personality.
Right.
And John is bringing more systems and more scalability to the organization. He's much better at that than I am. And so having people that are better at what needs to be done than you are or have been or could possibly be is a good hire, because you do want to hire to your weaknesses and the things that are important. Make sure you have people in charge that can do them.
Right. Well, that goes back to the point, I think, that being able to put your ego out of the way, which is, as I've learned, and I'm sure you have, is easier said than done. But having said that, I know from having watched you, and the numbers of the organization, and so you watch a few things that are critical. What I'm asking you in here, and I'm looking for some insights, is that sometimes you have a lot of outside mentors, and through your career you've used them, because I think in part because of your faith, etc., you've learned to find counselors. But sometimes you, like all of us, decide you're going to go in your own way instead of the way that other people have advised. Tell us a little bit about how that's worked for you, including, the transition to Jim and some other things. So I'm looking for some insights for.
I've used outside consultants in the company throughout the years. Being a member of TEC, which became Vistage for many years. John is a member of Vistage. Convene, I'm a member of Convene. We use Management Action Program, MAP, in our accountability for our management team. Skill sets that we bought. They weren't brought to us. We bought them because I don't know. I started the company and then selling a few buses, wash them, clean them, hire a mechanic, then you hire a salesperson and a secretary, and you build, and pretty soon you go, I don't know what I'm doing here. I need some help.
Yeah.
And you find out that you do know what you're doing, but you can do it better with people who can help you get better. And so bringing others in to help you improve the company, it brings tremendous value. Yeah, there's a cost to it, but the benefits far outweigh the cost.
Then that's on the outside, and that goes back to the fact that I see a lot of organizations who really don't go outside and look for capacity that they don't have internally, and I think that's what you said, and I think that's a strong recommendation. Tell us a little bit how you use your internal capacity, because again, one of my points is I think a lot of organizations don't really actively engage the wisdom of the front line. I like to say there's all this cognitive reserve out there, and in many organizations I go to, when they punch in, they turn off their brain, and when they punch out, they turn it back on. How have you been able to engage your frontline workers to keep them actively involved? I know this ESOP is a part of that, but try if you can to explain how you've been able to draw them into the business in a meaningful, engaged way instead of this is just a job.
Yeah. Well, I believe that people really do want to do a good job, and they want to end the day feeling good about themselves and doing a good job. And if you look at studies, it's not the pay, but it's the sense of responsibility that they can affect their work, that they're appreciated for what they do, and they're given some freedom. So you hire good people that want to do a good job, and they're not idiots. We've hired a few, and we try to get rid of them. We probably still got a few. We just haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, that's right.
But,
that's right.
Give them the freedom and then guidance on what needs to be done. And John Lander's a whole lot better at that than I am. He's a great delegator in trusting his team and open and listening and believing in the team members and allowing your people to make those decisions. Brings tremendous value. You have 150 people, you think one guy's going to know everything?
No, I know. Well, tell us a little bit, because it sounds like as you made the second hire, the decision-making process or the way you hired him was different than the first time, because obviously you had a learning curve you went through, and John possesses different skills than you do, which is also a plus. I think, as my dad once said, if I thought the way he did, one of us would be irrelevant.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
Or one of us not thinking.
Yeah, exactly. So help us out a little bit there, because it's clear that in this case you found a different set of skills than Jim possessed, and has this been an advantage to you? Tell us a little bit about
that. Skills very similar, both very intelligent men, smarter than I am. Different management style probably. Would probably be a better definition for it. And when we were looking to transition from Jim, planning for his retirement, we looked for a couple of years. Had a couple people in mind, and more we found out, we probably needed something a little bit different. And one of them was an internal candidate, tremendous quality individual, and was one of the final two. And when we made the decision to go with John, we were afraid that we were going to lose this individual that we do not want to. He's a tremendous part of our team, and but he was able to make the transition and trust and accept John's leadership, and now it's he's even better for having John as a leader.
No.
So, I don't know if that answered your question.
No. I think basically what I've and we're just about to wrap up here. But what I was looking for, and I think what you help with, CEOs as a rule are a lonely bunch, And the difficult thing is that those who seem to have the courage to be able to reach out and, like you said, admit that, you know, there's areas where they don't know, tend to be people who I find do better in the long haul than those who say, look, I'm running this and I'm going to make this happen. And part of what I as we kind of wrap this up, George, is based on your 40 years here and all that you've learned, what would you share with people about, you know, giving to others and giving to your team and how you can do that? So when you exit, you've got a sustainable business that's going to go on after you do.
Oh, well, we have a sustainable business. It doesn't need me. I do have some positive impact, and I think the employee owners of our company look at me as having a whole lot more influence and knowledge of what goes on a daily basis in what I do. And I guess that's an honor that they would see that. But no, the company doesn't need me to survive. We've got a great team of leadership and great management and great people throughout the organization at all levels and all depths. So it doesn't need me for transition, but probably the biggest mindset and the biggest challenge is for CEOs like myself to think that we're irreplaceable or indispensable, and to not plan for our departure is irresponsible, I believe, because our people need a transition, and planning for your own transition is critical for the long-term success of the organization. Using outsiders to help an executive with that is critical, because you can't operate on yourself. You can be your own attorney, but as the saying goes, you've got a fool for an attorney if you're. So having outside resources of people who have greater expertise and other input and other perspective than you do is tremendous value.
And the point is that throughout this, you've been able to do what we talked about. You've done well by doing good, and you've been able to reach out to your employees, etc. How would you like to wrap this up to tell another CEO what you've learned and how he could benefit his own business and maybe the community by taking some of what you've done and applying it to his own business?
Wow, that's a broad statement, because I really we're always in a learning mode and always want to be continuing to be learning. I tell people, you know, I've been doing this for 40 years, and every day I go, should have learned that a long time ago.
I've been there.
But trusting your people is critical, because if you don't trust, probably you're not trustworthy, or you're not seen as being trustworthy. And our people do want to do a good job. They are trustworthy, and they want to be trusted. And some of us, it's difficult to make that transition because we are responsible, and we don't want to let down on the commitments or responsibilities that we have, either to our bankers or our suppliers or other people that have an interest in the business. And so that lack of trust or lack of letting go of control can be driven from a good value, but it creates a different distrustful value in other people when we don't let go and trust other people to do a good job.
No, that's really important. You know, as I said, you've also been available as a mentor. Do you mind sharing your phone number or website where somebody, if they have an interest, a CEO might want to reach out and pick your brain a little bit?
It's slim pickings, but I'd be happy to. Yeah, my email address is gtillery, G-T-I-L-L-E-R-Y, at a-zbus.com.
Good. So, no, that's great.
That's
great.
How you can get a hold of me, and be happy to help if it's within my wheelhouse to do so. Anyone that I could.
George, it's been a pleasure. Thank
pleasure,
you very much. Well, this has been another episode of Good-Hearted Leadership, how to catapult your business by doing well and doing good. And today we've had George Tillery, who talked about some of his experiences with an ESOP, and also his capacity to be able to give up control of the business, to let it grow, and to be able to give back to others, not only inside the organization, but ultimately in a charitable way. And I've seen his charitable giving, and we can certainly all use more leaders like him. And until we meet next time, go out there and be a good-hearted leadership. Thank you very much.
Anderson Business Coaching inspires extraordinary organizational results by engaging the talents of ordinary people. ABC opens the communication links from the top to the bottom of the organization to tap into an untapped reserve of creative ideas and solutions by the people who do the work every day. Secondly, we identify external resources that have the experience and capability to develop systems and processes that the internal staff can manage.